Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to covering our second favorite animated comedy show, Family Guy. Well, it used to be second, only to South Park, but after today's video, it might be time to reconsider that. Let me explain. This past Sunday, Family Guy premiered its long-awaited Trump-focused episode called Trump Guy, and you'll find out why soon. And before you get things twisted here, I'm not triggered because this episode makes fun of Trump, a politician I support. That may be part of it, sure, but in reality, I actually did try and give this Family Guy episode a chance. It starts off pretty okay too, and it also has some funny moments, sure, but it's also a very mixed bag. Some good, but a lot of bad in here too, and I can't help but feel like Family Guy missed the point in the end as well. But let's not get ahead of ourselves too much. Why don't we turn back and start from the beginning of this episode? This episode was actually teased at the end of the last episode, where after a series of events, Peter Griffin ends up being a political correspondent on television, which then leads to him being hired by the Trump administration. Things start off in this episode with President Trump giving Peter a tour of the White House. Peter makes a joke about the president only spending 2 days a week there, and then we cut to a funny gag of Melania Trump blowing bubbles outside, all while Eric Trump, Trump's son, plays with them like he's a big kid. So far so good, but we are just 1 minute into this thing. Regardless, I have to say, I do appreciate this show's attention to details here. It's funny to see almost all of Trump's family and staff get goofed on in this episode, and for the most part, it's pretty lighthearted and good fun, at least in the beginning. I even like the goofy, over-the-top appearance of Donald Trump here. He's got the signature hair, the spray tan, and even little guy hands, something all the libs love chastising him for. I personally have never noticed the small hands myself, but this all seems like fair game to me too. It's a good, over-the-top representation which I think anyone with a good sense of humor could laugh at, no matter what side of real-world politics you fall on. Unfortunately though, this well-meaning good time is short-lived, as things quickly turn more edgy and mean-spirited in just a few minutes. Next, the Griffin family moves into their new house in Washington, D.C., and here's where we have a fun and welcome tangent into not only mocking the president, but also American politics in general, which of course mostly take place in D.C., our nation's capital. Upon walking into their new home, the Griffin boys start fighting over the bedrooms they get. Both of them want the room where the intern died in, but Peter quickly settled this by revealing that all the bedrooms had interns die in them. And this is a pretty clever joke on how shady and dangerous Washington politics can be. At least you might think so if you watch a lot of that House of Cards show on Netflix. It's pretty funny, and I really like seeing this other side of the episode ripping all this politics stuff too, instead of just overdoing it with the Trump bashing. Speaking of which, let's get back to the Trump jokes. First, the Griffins go to a swanky Washington, D.C. dinner party. Meg Griffin eventually runs into Trump's hot daughter, Ivanka, in the back room. Here there are some pretty funny jokes made about Ivanka's husband, which are fine, but the next sequence is where things really start going downhill. Ivanka eventually gives Meg a makeover, and then she introduces Meg to her father, the president. Ivanka says Trump is basically like her boyfriend, which is a cheap and unnecessary jab. And then comes the worst part here. As Meg is talking to President Trump, he slowly goes down to reach toward her privates. A clear joke on the grab her by the P word meme, which comes from an out of context joke Trump was making in private. And here's where the episode really starts to feel easy and cheap and forced even. It sounds like it was written by an intern at Family Guy who just googled all the most famous and played out Trump jokes they could think of. They hit them all here too. The hair, the hands, the immigrant wife, and silly kids. They even did that joke I mentioned about Trump having an incestuous relationship with Ivanka, his daughter. Every liberal and their mother has done a joke on that for some reason, and I say it's getting pretty old. It's also not based on facts at all. That's why that grabber joke doesn't work either. We all know Trump said that about a woman who wanted him to grab them. The president was talking about consensual sex, but the media and the comics and the funny shows like Family Guy, they all spin it into something that it's not. Just like what they did with the Ivanka joke, which is based on a line Trump said years ago, which was simply him complimenting his daughter's good looks, which he should. Ivanka is gorgeous if you hadn't heard or seen. Anyone with eyeballs can see that, but again, the liberals out there had to turn that compliment into a father lusting for his daughter. Gross, sick, and maybe they're projecting. They're the weirdos who think about incest and stuff like that, and both of these jokes we're going over right here are not only sick and unfunny, they're also not based on truth, and that's why they're not as funny as they should be, or could be. Good humor and the best jokes, they're all based on facts first. The truth in comedy is what they call it in the biz, and it's really what's lacking in these bits from Family Guy, and it's why I think this episode is failing. There is a funnier side bit before this part though. Earlier at the party, there are a couple of really cheesy liberal jokes that end up being made by Brian himself, the family dog. There's a quick cutaway to Brian in a writer's room, coming up with little jabs about Roger Stone and stuff. It's actually a very funny bit, much better than this mean-spirited Trump stuff we just went over. Brian is known to be an over-the-top liberal on this show, and anytime Family Guy recognizes this, it's usually a good time for us. The next day, Meg tells her parents about the incident with Trump, but Peter is far more interested in watching his recent appearance on CNN. He was part of an overcrowded panel there, and he thinks he won the debate because he spoke the loudest.
This country needs stronger border security.
Our border security is the strongest in the world.
What we need is to take care of our children.
I can't get an erection.
You think giving them amnesty is fair to the people who are already here?
Gotta love some good old-fashioned CNN bashing. They are simply the worst, of course. Fake news. Next, the show doubles down on the Trump assaulting Meg joke. They do an okay bit where Trump is supposed to be Jabba the Hutt from Star Wars, and Vice President Mike Pence is Jabba's little giggling minion. I'll admit, I laughed here a bit, but I still can't get over this whole fake sexual assault thing. It's a stupid, easy, creepy joke, and it's all based on a lie. I don't see the president as a creep at all, and why would he be grabbing chicks when he has a super hot wife? Or he could buy expensive hookers if he really wanted to. And this joke in Family Guy might have been good for, say, one laugh, but I would have respected the show much more if they skipped over this bit completely. It's played out and based on nothing, and a smarter writer would have been more clever and made Trump more awesome or something different, but clearly this episode was written by the B team at Family Guy. But there still is some life left in this episode too. Don't worry. Next, we get to a pretty good analogy which really works well here. As things progress, you start to notice that Peter, the Family Guy, he's a lot like Trump in many ways. Both are loud, big dudes who speak their mind and offend people. And this also harps back on the episode's name, Trump Guy, which now we can see was leading us to a direct comparison between Family Guy and the Donald himself. And while the show seems to be using the analogy to try and shame Trump, I say it's actually one of his better qualities. And it's why he got elected. This is why so many people like President Trump, because he's a real person with a real family, and he's not afraid to make jokes and tear people down once in a while. So a lot of the same reasons us viewers like Peter from Family Guy, well, they're the same reasons we like our president now, and it's why people voted for him. After Peter realizes he's like Trump, he decides he's going to try and change. Peter doesn't want him and the family to be mean and rude anymore, so he tries to fix things, but it doesn't quite work out. Peter goes back to see Trump to try and work things out though. Peter pleads with the president saying it's okay for him to be like this, but Trump can't because he's running the country. And this prompts a perfect rebuttal from Trump, who points out that Peter is not just a normal guy, he's the Family Guy, implying that he's got a lot more pull in the public than he leads on. And this is true too. And apparently Family Guy is being self-aware here. Their show has been on TV for over 17 seasons, and they're basically a staple of pop culture at this point, although they have seen a decline lately, mainly because they're falling off and getting more liberal, and they're getting better competition. Regardless, Trump responds to Peter with this great bit, which I really liked.
You're not just a guy from Rhode Island, you're Peter Griffin from Family Guy. Many children have learned their favorite Jewish, black, and gay jokes by watching your show over the years.
In fairness, we've been trying to phase out the gay stuff.
This is true too. Family Guy has actually been getting a bit more PC lately in order to fit in with modern liberal sensibilities. And it's also worth noting that Family Guy is admitting to their own faults here. They are again being self-aware, pointing out the fact that they've done all kinds of edgy jokes about race and gays and all kinds of other stuff for many years. And they have influenced others to make jokes about this too. So them now criticizing Trump for doing some of the same things is highly hypocritical. But I guess they think recognizing this self-awareness here is a good thing. But I say it doesn't quite get them out of this hypocrisy, and it doesn't excuse all of their borderline offensive anti-Trump rhetoric today. I assume they're trying to use this self-awareness to shield themselves from backlash, but it's not going to work on me. Next, things really escalate as a fight breaks out between Peter and Trump. Right away, you could tell they are referencing the famous chicken fights Peter has had over the years on the show. It's a pretty good bit. They basically fight and have a lot of punches and go in a lot of different locations. It's a lot of fun, very action-packed. And having Peter fight Trump instead of the chicken this time is a funny twist too. They even have a joke where Trump smashes an Obama painting during the fight, after which Peter immediately picks it up and even kisses it. This made me laugh a bit too, but it also made me realize how Family Guy has never really goofed on Obama at all, and they certainly would have never made such a terrible portrayal of him like what they're doing with Trump now. Could you imagine them doing an episode where Obama assaults a woman or something similar? That would never happen.
Sarah, any update?
I haven't had the chance to ask the president if he's fighting with Peter Griffin.
The fight eventually comes to an end at the Washington Monument. Peter and Trump fall from the top, but they are saved by another world leader. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau makes an appearance here and saves Peter and Trump. But his Family Guy portrayal, the Family Guy version of Trudeau, is rather confusing, I must say. They decided to go with this approach where Trudeau is supposed to be this good-looking savior-type leader who's perfect. He even flies away on Canadian geese like some kind of hero. And not only do I see things way differently regarding Trudeau, but also this is a big missed opportunity for Family Guy. There are loads of things they could have goofed on Justin Trudeau for. This guy is a total Canadian cuck and a social justice warrior, but apparently one of the Family Guy writers thinks he's hot or something, so they gave him this portrayal, which I think is an abomination, especially after they diss Trump so much. Things actually get even worse in the last scene though. After the family gets back to Quahog, the lazy writers behind this episode decide to drop a couple more random pot shots at Trump. At the end here, they first reference the Steele dossier, which was a fake document BuzzFeed reported on years ago and got called out for lying about it. This dossier was debunked forever ago, but for some reason, the Family Guy show thought it would make sense to mention it here, like it was actually credible. It wasn't. And then finally, to round things out, Stewie says that Trump supported a Kitty Diddler who ran for the US Senate, and this was also based on unproven claims. And it basically finishes this Family Guy episode with more lies and anti-Trump propaganda, and it wasn't even well done or funny at all. In the end, this Trump Guy episode started off okay enough. I was fine with making a few jokes about Trump and politics in Washington DC, but things really went off the rails quickly, and that shameful ending I just went over really shows that Family Guy was co-opted by the liberals here. Clearly, they don't have the brains or scruples to stay more neutral and fair, like how other much better shows like South Park have done, who roasted Trump a lot too, but South Park never went into all these bogus sexual assault allegations, and they never mentioned fake dossiers and guilt by association crap. No, South Park is a much classier show, obviously, and much funnier too, and it appears Family Guy, they're losing itself to the liberals more and more each week. What do you guys think? Was this Family Guy episode fun, or did it get a little mean-spirited and politically motivated? And how can such a big show like this bring up so many lies and so much disproven shit and present it as facts? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. We'll see y'all next time.